I had to finish a story though. Was anybody here when I told the story about my Bible being stolen?
Yes.
Okay, some of you were not, so I'm going to retell it. I'll do a short version. So 3 years ago, Dave and I and the kids were on a road trip, and in St. Louis we stopped, and our van got broken into, and they took David's computer bag and other stuff that we had in the car. Well, the thing that I held most dearly was my Bible, and it was the first Bible that I got after I was saved. One of my friends in high school who prayed for me until the day I got saved, she gave me the Bible. And so it was very precious to me. So I wept tears over my Bible being stolen. So 3 years later, this was a couple months ago, I've thought about that Bible many times, and a couple months ago I was sitting in my living room, thought about the Bible, and I literally said, God, I just want my Bible back. And 2 days later, I got a call from a St. Louis police detective saying that they found my Bible in a home with stolen goods in it. An investigation they've been following for like 5 years. And so this week, because you know I had to process and all that, but this week I got my Bible back! Whoa! And it's a little torn up, I'll admit. I hope they tore out those pages because they were reading them. But I was like, oh man, it's torn up. And God's like, Reagan. I was like, right, I got it back. But I just had this moment with the Lord where He reminded me, Reagan, everything the enemy has stolen from your life, he must repay. He must repay. He must repay. And you may not understand that concept, but it is in this Bible. And this Bible is truth. And I am standing here tonight showing you this Bible meant something to me, and God knew it did, because this represented somebody who prayed for me. This represented God's pursuit over my life to get me to the day where I said yes to Him. That's what this Bible represents to me. And God cares about that. He cares about every little detail of your life. He cares about those moments. He cares that my friend wrote me a letter in the front of that, and it's still there. About all the years she prayed for me. God cares about you in every detail of your life. And so tonight that brings us to Psalm 23. I don't remember if I told you to put that up there, Emma. I did it, huh? It's okay. Oh! Nope. Okay, it's all good. So I'm going to read it. Oh, there it is. So we are going to read this together again. Do you know that studies show when you hear something, write something, say something, and then you tell it to somebody, that's more powerful and makes changes in your life? So we're going to read this together out loud with our voices. Ready? The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. So I continue to ask, are you guys seeing Psalm 23 in your life? Raise your hand. Yeah? It was so good. I even went to the Gospel Rescue Mission graduation this week, and they were honoring a girl, right, that she was raising money for homeless.
Yeah.
And they're like, and there's the postcard she made or whatever, as a big poster up front. And it had Psalm 23 on it. And I was all, it's everywhere. Wow, Lord. Because he saturates us. When we lean into him, he saturates us. It's like standing by a waterfall. And if we're back, right, we don't feel it. But we can get nearer and we start to get sprinkles, right? But then we step into the waterfall and we're like, right? Y'all know that. You've been in it. Okay, maybe you don't open your mouth. That would be bad. But you're like, everywhere, right? And that's what happens when we lean into the Lord. He says, draw near to me and I will draw near to you. Because when we draw near to him, his presence comes. Takes us over. So he's saturating us in Psalm 23 right now. And last week I talked about, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And last week I was telling you how it was really important that we settle in our minds that in this life we will face valleys. That is a very real thing. That we don't just live on the mountaintop. And we don't come to Jesus to just live on the mountaintop in circumstances. But we do in here. With Jesus, we get to experience a mountain when we're in a valley. We get to experience peace when there's chaos around us. We get to experience his perfect love come in and cast out fear when all we see is fear, but we call upon him. It is very important that we settle there are valleys so that we are not surprised when we come upon a valley, right? Because so often in life we're like, bam, 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 just like valley after valley after valley. And we're just in this place of living in the valley. And that's where complaining and grumbling comes in. And that's when we're living in the valley. But see, in 1 Peter 4:12, it says, beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. I talked about how my son and I like to scare each other. I told you guys about that last week. And how once he got onto my game, then he walks into a room when he knows I'm in a room and he goes, Mom, I know you're in there. So then he walks in so he doesn't get scared. And I was telling you, that's how God wants us to come at valleys, to come at trials. That we look at it and we go, enemy, I see you, and you ain't got nothing on me. Because my God is with me and I will not fear. We come at him instead of him coming at us. We have to remember that when we come to Christ, we start everything we do in life from the place of victory. We start there. See, so often we're striving to get there. But God says, no, you start from the place of victory. Amen. You start there. So therefore, do not be surprised. Be ready for it. Going, I have the victory. How's this one going to work out for my good? Come on, Lord. That's how we're called to come at it. In 1 Peter 5:8-10, it says, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Woo. See, we always think in our head, I'm going to get rested up. If only valleys came when I'm rested up and ready for them, right? But see, the enemy is prowling around waiting for the moment to pounce. Waiting for the moment that you're down. Waiting for the moment you're exhausted. And then load something else on. But God says, be sober-minded and be watchful for what he's going to do. Be ready for him. And then resist him. Firm in your faith, knowing that the same kind of sufferings are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world. See, the enemy likes to get you to think you're all alone in your trials. That you're all alone in the valley. No one knows what I'm going through. I'm all alone. Nobody sees me. But get this verse. It says, no, you're experiencing the same kind of sufferings as your brotherhood throughout the world. You are not alone. See, God created you for a relationship so that you would not experience your trial alone, but instead you would lock arms with your brothers and sisters and go, wait a second, here's what I'm going through. What? You're going through the same thing? What the? I thought I was all alone. And then they're like, no. And then together you go, wait a second. Let's look at this. Let's see what God is doing. Because all of a sudden you're not alone. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. Who wants to be strengthened? Who wants to be established? Okay, good. So, in looking at that, how are we going to come at valleys? Well, first, yes. In verse 2, we've got to look and go, what are valleys that we face? And I was looking in the Bible, in the Bible, it talks about a lot of valleys. And tonight I'm just going to touch on a few. But tonight, I want you to know we are in a war strategy room. Have you guys seen the movies where they go into the war strategy room before they walk onto the battlefield? And they're like, okay, what do we know about the enemy? See, so often we don't stop and do that. So often we don't evaluate our life and go, okay, where does the enemy get in on me? Where are my weaknesses that I always fall into? What is his game with me? It's so important that we take a step back and we look and we go, Lord, let me see. Lord, where do I fall? Lord, where do I go into those places that are not what you're calling me to? And so our first one comes from Numbers 13, 23 through 33. And it's the Valley of Eshcol, which tonight we're also going to call the Valley of Fear. So here's what happens. In Numbers 13, we come upon the Israelites. We can take it down for a minute. Everybody's getting distracted. We come upon the Israelites, and Moses is leading them. And God tells Moses, have people go in and spy out the land that I have promised you. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. I want you to send spies in, war strategy, to see this land. And what God's saying is, go and see your enemy. God invites you so that you're not surprised when you come into battle with him. So here the spies go out to check out the land. And, now we can put it up, Numbers 13. And they came to the Valley of Eshcol, Valley of Fear, we're going to call it tonight, and cut down from there a branch with a single cluster of grapes. And they carried it on a pole between two of them. They also brought some pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster that the people of Israel cut down from there. At the end of the 40 days, they returned from spying out the land. And they came to Moses and Aaron and said to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh, they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him, we came to the land which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. So they're confirming what Moses said, God said. However, the people who dwell on the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the Negeb, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. So they're talking about there's all these people there because they're in fear. And they're going, we saw the milk and honey God talked about, but let us tell you what's really waiting for us. Dun, dun, dun. So they're putting out a list of all the people that are there. And there comes the mighty warrior Caleb. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land which we have gone to spy out is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people that we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, which were great giants. And we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. Somebody got into some fear in that valley. I want to remind you, they carried back a cluster of grapes that God had told them. Do we have a picture of a cluster of grapes? The men carrying it first. This was a picture, a nice little picture I found. But then I found a man in Pakistan who grew this huge cluster of grapes. Do we have it up there? Oh, wow. Look at that. It had to have been huge to be carried on a pole by two men. And I imagined something like this. And that was just one cluster they chose to carry. See, God's saying, I have all of this for you. But they come back and all they saw was the enemy. They did not see what God had spoken, though they had it in their very hands. His promise was right there. But the majority of them said, no. You should see the enemy. And see, so often in our lives, God comes in and He says, I can restore this. You have a wayward kid, I can restore them unto me. You have a relationship that you don't think can be repaired, He says, I will repair it. You have an anger problem, He says, I will take that anger and I will turn it to gentleness. See, God gives us these promises. And instead the enemy comes and all we see is the enemy going, what about this? But I want to tell you, these men, only Joshua and Caleb, who said, no, we will take on the enemy. They were the only two men out of all of those who entered the promised land. They were the only two that entered the promised land that actually got the promises. See, so often in our lives we come to the valley of fear, and this is where you have a decision. It's where you have a decision to move forward or back down in fear. The valley of Eshcol. And I was reminded recently that God actually made us to move forward. God gave us feet that go forward. Does anybody have feet that take them backwards? Okay, I just want to make sure. But we all have feet that take us forward. We have eyes that look forward. Does anybody have eyes in the back of their head? I know some of you moms think you do. But we don't have eyes in the back of our head. We have feet to move forward. We have eyes to see ahead. But so often we're turning back. And the valley of fear is where we make those decisions. And that comes daily for some of us. That comes daily Will I move forward or will I back down? And will I fall into what I always fall into because the enemy knows me? But I'm here to tell you, God knows you better. And God has a way through the valley. But you got to start looking at Him and not the enemy like those other men were doing. So I ask you tonight, what is the place that you are afraid to move forward in? What place has you bound tonight in fear? Because God's calling you to face the enemy. And He has a war strategy plan of how to get you through it, and He just needs you to lean into Him. Another valley that we face, 1 Samuel 17, brings us to David and Goliath. You know this story, I'm sure, even if you haven't been in church before. In 1 Samuel 17, 2 and 3, can we put that up? And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered and encamped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in line of battle against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side with the valley between them. We're going to stop right there. This we're calling the valley of conflict. The valley of conflict is where you are in conflict with somebody or something, and you take your side. And that other person is on that other side of the mountain, and there's a valley between you, and nobody's moving. The valley of conflict. The valley of Elah. See, these two armies came to battle one another. And the Philistines, as you know, they send out Goliath, who is their strongest, fiercest, biggest warrior. And nobody wants to fight him. And this little old shepherd boy shows up in the scene just delivering food to his brothers. Just a daily, ordinary life. Day in his life. Just an ordinary day. He's like, okay, I'm going to go deliver food to my brothers. But I'm going to tell you something about David. He had spent time in the war strategy room. In his life, he had spent time in the strategy room studying the enemy. He had spent time shepherding a flock when nobody saw him. He had spent time facing enemy after enemy, bear after lion, and his own family who thought nothing of him. He had spent time with God learning his enemy, but more importantly, learning who his shepherd was. And David shows up on the scene, just an ordinary day for him, delivering food, and all of a sudden says, what is happening here? Why will no one face that man? I know who my God is. See, this was a boy who had spent time so that when he came up in an ordinary day in his life, came up against a great enemy, he did not cower. But he saw conflict and he said, well, God's about to do something here. I know who my God is. Watch him move on behalf of his people. See, in the valley of conflict, it takes somebody backing down. Right? For a conflict to end. Or it takes somebody risking something for God's glory. See, sometimes a risk in the valley of conflict is saying, I'm sorry. Sometimes facing Goliath is just saying, I'm sorry. And for some of us, that feels like we're facing a giant. And for some of us, surrendering and not fighting for what we want. Just surrendering and saying, God, have your way, is facing Goliath. Or sometimes it's being right in the face of temptation. And I'm on one side and my temptation is on the other. addiction is on the other side, and I'm facing it. And I'm saying, today, I will conquer Goliath. The valley of conflict. What do you do? Sometimes our valley of conflict is actually just what I said, backing down and running from it, which is actually not winning it. Sometimes it's pressing into relationship when we don't want to. The valley of Elah. In our last one tonight, Psalm 84, 5 through 7. The valley of Baca, which is also known as the valley of weeping. Blessed are those whose strength is in you and whose heart are the highways to Zion. As they go through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The early rain also covers it with pools. They go from strength to strength. Each one appears before God in Zion. So I want to break this down for you. Oh, can we go back really quick? The valley of Baca was the place that the Israelites had to travel through to get to Jerusalem. And it was a very dry land. So they had to plan ahead to have water, or else they would pass through this with no water. So when you see the valley of Baca written in the Bible, it refers to a valley of weeping. It's where our joy gets all dried up. Anybody ever feel like their joy gets dried up?
Yes.
And all we have is weeping. That is this place. But here's what it says. As they go through the valley of Baca, those who lean into God, they make the valley of Baca a place of springs. I have this in one other translation, the Passion Translation, to help you understand it better. How enriched are they who find their strength in the Lord. Where are you finding your strength when you face the valley? Within their hearts are the highways of holiness. Their hearts are always fixed on God's holiness. Even when their paths wind through the dark valley of tears, they dig deep to find a pleasant pool where others only find pain. See, so often we stop at the pain and we don't dig deep. And that's where we run through the valley. That's where we do it, or we camp out instead of digging deep and going, what is this pain? God, go there with me because I want more. And he says you got to dig deep for the more, because when you dig deep, you will find a pleasant pool where others are only finding pain. He gives to them a brook of blessing filled from the rain of an outpouring. He wants you, when you go through the valley, when others are going through the valley, that you would actually be able to offer them something. That you would say, yeah, we're both in the valley, but come and drink. Here's what God's saying. Here's how God's refreshing me. Here's how God is strengthening me. Come and drink with me, because he is in me. And I know he's near. They grow stronger then, and stronger with every step forward, and the God of gods will appear before them in Zion. Because you actually will go stronger the deeper you dig.
Amen.
I found this picture of this man that was digging a well. Do we have that? I want to tell you about this man. He lives in India, and his wife was refused from a certain village to get water that she was passing through, because their village did not have water. And he got so angry that his wife would be refused water that he went back to his village and he started digging. And all the village told him, you will never find water here. People have tried it before. This man took 40 days and then reached water. He dug 6 hours a day for 40 days. That man had some strength.
Yeah.
That man had his heart aligned with his wife. But had his heart aligned, right? In love. And I tell you, when you align your heart in love to the one who made you, when you start digging, you will hit water. And And sometimes it may feel like, God, really? I got to keep going? And he says, yes. And it may be 6 hours a day for 40 days, but will you do it? To see what God has for you. Let me tell you about this man. This well that he ended up digging with his own bare hands, none of the village would help him. They just ridiculed him daily. It now provides enough water for his whole village.
Wow.
It is amazing. It's incredible. This could be your life. That you hit a valley and you go, let's dig deep, God. Where's the spring? Where's the water? I'm saying no to the enemy today. And I'm going to dig deep to find you, God. It requires endurance to dig deep. It requires diligence to dig deep. It requires strength to dig deep. But I am telling you, you will hit springs of water like you have never experienced before with the Lord. And then you will feed your family with those springs. And then you will feed your city with those springs. It is time to dig deeper than you have ever dug before. And I look around and I see some of you, and I have heard your stories of digging deep, and I am so proud of you. I have heard your stories of showing up for visitation and your kids not showing up for time and time again, and you still dig deep and you press through, because one day you will get your kids. I hear stories from you of marriages that are falling apart, and you say, no, I will go lower still. And you dig deep and you pray for your spouse every day. And I see your marriage get restored. And I am telling you today, there are stories in this room that would blow your mind of how people have dug deep and they have seen God's glory.
Come on.
And it is time to dig deeper. It is time. It is time. If we want to see a city restored, then we need people that are digging deep. Because we have strong people, then we will have strong families, and then we will have strong cities. But we must dig deeper than we have dug before. And God is calling us up right now. He's calling the broken. Because do you know, oh, God loves the broken. Because the broken people look at when you get lifted up. And when you're feeding others. And they go, where did you come from? Stockton. That's right. But they look at your life and they go, how do you have such peace? How do you have such love still? And you get to say, have you met my God? It is time to dig deep.